as things stand right now, the Bruins are the first wild card team, and they control their destiny. They have one more point than Ottawa. Both teams with a game to go. Ottawa's wild card 2, Boston wild card 1. With that said, it really feels like there's 4 possibilities for the Bruins to be playing in the first round of the playoffs. It really depends on where the Bruins finish. But, right now, Carolina is probably going to be the top team in the Eastern Conference. So if the Bruins finish wild card 1, then chances are they won't play Carolina. But the Bruins could finish wild card 2 and play Carolina. So Carolina's an option. And then so is Buffalo, Montreal, and Tampa, because the Atlantic is not figured out yet. And all 3 of those teams have a chance to win the Atlantic if certain things go in certain directions. So would you rather play Buffalo, Montreal, Carolina, or Tampa Bay if you're Boston? For me, I think it's fairly obvious that you don't want to draw Carolina or Tampa Bay. I still feel like Carolina is a team I just don't believe in, but especially having played them recently, I say it all the time. I'll say it if the Bruins draw them in round 1. Carolina is greater than the sum of their parts. I don't think they're a wildly impressive team on paper. I really don't. Certainly not when you're the top team in the conference. Like for a top team in the conference and a top team in the league, I just think that there are teams that are far better on paper. But the way Carolina's coached and the structure that they play, and they're just a well-oiled machine, and they've always played this way. They hunt pucks, they're aggressive, they check with their feet very, very well, and they force opponents into mistakes. They're very, very stingy defensively. They don't give up a lot defensively. So I think Carolina is a really difficult opponent for Boston to draw. I would not want to play Carolina, and I would not want to play Tampa Bay. I think that Tampa Bay, Nikita Kucherov is just, as good as David Pastrnak is, Nikita Kucherov is even that much better. He's been I think he's been the leading point scorer in the NHL over the last, 7, 8, 9 years behind Connor McDavid. Like he's that good. And I also think that Tampa Bay just has, again, they have a great coach, a great system, a great goaltender. I don't know what the deal is with Victor Hedman on a personal leave right now, but you still have some high-end offense there with Gensel and even Braden Point, who's had a down year, but you have Braden Point, Kucherov, Gensel, Hagel. And I think they have a really good support system too, with guys like Nick Paul and Yanni Gord and Anthony Cirelli. And, they have a good group of guys. And on the back end, you have Darren Radish, who's had a career year. So, when you have both him and Hedman, assuming Hedman's in the lineup, I just think that between those guys, then you got guys like Lilleberg and Chernak on the back end who are really tough to play against, Ryan McDonough. I don't think you want anything to do with Tampa Bay either. So even though the Bruins have played them pretty well, and anybody can beat anybody. I mean, I think the Eastern Conference this year is as open as it's ever been. Even the favorites like a Tampa Bay or a Carolina, I mean, I don't think they're guarantees to make the second round, even if they play Boston. But if we're talking these 4 possibilities, Carolina, Tampa Bay, not what you want to see. So, if you're the Bruins, I think the best case scenario is for you to win out against Ottawa, and keep that wild card 1 spot and hope that maybe Buffalo or Montreal wins the Atlantic, and then Ottawa has to play Carolina in round 1 as wild card 2 plays, top team in the East. And then the Bruins as wild card 1 would play the second team in the East, and that would be either, if not Tampa Bay, Montreal or Buffalo. Now, to be fair to Montreal and Buffalo, I think that those teams would be the favorites over Boston for sure, deservedly so. I think Montreal is a very, very electric team. But they have some grit that I think is overlooked as well. But Montreal, they're an electric factory. Cole Caulfield, 50-goal season. Nick Suzuki, near 100-point season. Lane Hudson, just a offensive dynamo on the back end. Uri Slavkovsky is really starting to come into his own at the NHL level as a real good power forward who can finish. Ivan Demidov, you know, one of the favorites for the Calder Trophy as NHL Rookie of the Year. And they have a good support system too. Like Montreal's a really good team, but they're unproven. And the Bruins, say what you want about the Bruins, but the Bruins have some high-end players and guys that have been there and done that. Like I said, Charlie McAvoy's having the best year of his career. And, when he's on his game, he's a top 10 defenseman at the NHL level. David Pasternak's one of the best forwards in the world. Morgan Geekie definitely is somebody who's kind of coming onto the scene lately. And, when you have some young players, young, exciting players like a Minton and a Higgins, Boston has arguably one of the best lines in hockey this year in Zacha, Middlestad, and Arvidsson. So Boston's no joke. And, the size that they've added, the toughness, right? You have Zadorov, you have Jeannot, Kastelik. Like, you don't want to play those guys in a 7-game series. And then the great X factor, of course, is Jeremy Swayman, right? Like, can Jeremy Swayman steal a playoff series for Boston? Yeah, I think he could, right? So obviously, if you were to play Montreal, special team, all of these teams really, but in the playoffs, special teams really gets highlighted. And for the Bruins, special teams has been a bit of a Jekyll and Hyde story for them this year. Yeah, the power play has been top 10 pretty much all season, but it's dropped. They went from being a top 5 unit all year to kind of barely hang on a top 10 the last month and a half of the season. But the penalty kill got off to a good start this year. Bruins had a top 10 PK and PP for the first month of the year, but the PK has just been, it's gotten better since the Olympic break. They're still, I think, 25th in the NHL. So the Bruins penalty kills is a problem. And if you're talking Tampa Bay, if you're talking Montreal, if you're talking Buffalo, those teams can zip it around in the power play. So special teams will be huge for Boston, no matter who they play in the first round. Special teams are big for everybody in the playoffs, but specifically Boston, who's a team that's always seemingly in the penalty box. So I think that even the teams that might be the preferred matchup, like a Montreal or a Buffalo, it might be preferred compared to Carolina or Tampa, but the Bruins still have their work cut out for them. And then, with Buffalo, I think it's a similar story to Montreal where they have a ton of speed and skill, a good combination of youth and players that are in their prime that are really hitting their strides. But again, there's just inexperience there. More inexperience in Montreal, who went to the playoffs last year. Buffalo's exciting. They're a great team this year, and that city is going to be rabid for the postseason. And I'm really happy for the city of Buffalo that they get to experience playoff hockey again, because they're one of the greatest hockey markets, honestly, in the league. And Buffalo's TV ratings are constantly number one for just hockey national TV games in general. And their team hasn't really been relevant for over a decade, and they just continue to show up. So the city of Buffalo they're going to be ready to go for the postseason. But their team, they're kind of primed to be maybe a little too psyched up. And, if you choke in game 1 or game 2 in front of your home crowd, specifically game 1, they might start to get impatient because they want so much excitement. And if you can't deliver that to them right away, then, you start to feel pressure and stuff. So as good as these teams are, there are a lot of intangibles at play. And we've seen it with the Bruins over the years. When you're a favorite, that comes with expectations. And sometimes as an underdog, you can play a little bit more free. So I'm really looking forward to finding out more information over the next couple of days about what the final playoff matchups will be in both the Eastern Conference and the Western Conference. And we, of course, are going to break it all down here throughout the course of this week I'll be previewing the Eastern Conference first round, Western Conference first round. On Wednesday, I believe, I'm going to do an episode. I'm not sure exactly what it's going to be, if it's going to be top 10, top 15, top 20, but I want to do a rankings episode about just the top 10, 15, or 20 Bruins playoff games of the last 25 years, since 2000, 25, 26 years. And that could be something fun to do to kind of gear us up for some playoff excitement this spring. And there's certainly a lot of games to choose from. So I'm gonna, I'll get some feedback from you guys, and I'll do my own due diligence. I already have, my list in mind. I wrote an article about this not too long ago, but so that'll be fun. And we'll talk about what the optimal Bruins playoff lineup will be, or could be. Again, Bruins play New Jersey on Tuesday, season finale. What do you want your postseason lineup to look like if you're the Bruins? And if you could choose any opponent for the Bruins in the first round, who do you think gives the Bruins the best chance to advance? Buffalo, Carolina, Montreal, or Tampa Bay? I'd be surprised if a couple of those answers are Tampa Bay and Carolina, but you never know. You never know.